We've said a lot about the passage in the 14th chapter of Luke, where Jesus tells his would-be followers to forsake their families and all their possessions. But we have tended to overlook the final line in that decree. And forsake your own life also. It's no wonder I get so many letters from people who want to join a new religious discussion group, especially if it's within a few blocks of where they live. And yet those same people never get any further than that. They drop off the radar almost immediately when they learn what it is that we are really teaching. What I'm talking about is literally thousands of people who have written to me just in the past 2 years, saying that they want to link up with others who are 100% sold out for Christ. Toward that end, they ask me if I know of someone in their town who is doing that. Sold out? 100%? Not really. They just want another religious sit-on-your-backside discussion group, one that doesn't make any demands on all the things that presently make up their lives. Maybe such a group could inspire them to give up drugs, or take on some other mantle of respectability, but not something that is going to seriously change their lives in obedience to Jesus. Often they're just looking for something that they can use to convince themselves that everyone else is lukewarm by comparison to their interpretation of being 100% sold out. Trust me, even the most rabid and far-out religious fanatics in the Pentecostal movement are still just lukewarm wannabes by comparison to a real disciple of Jesus. Through the hundreds of videos that we have made on this YouTube channel, we are trying to get you to seriously rethink what it is that Jesus asked of his first disciples, so that we can start living our lives by those same all-important guidelines. Literally laying down your life in obedience to Jesus is what makes all the difference between being really red hot and just being lukewarm. Some people will quote Jesus as having said, "Take up your cross and follow me." But on closer examination, you'll discover that the so-called cross is just turning up for church meetings or home fellowship Bible studies on time, or maybe swearing off a few social vices. Trust me, that is not even close to what Jesus is asking from us. And this misunderstanding is why so many of the people who write in excitedly either just go silent or respond by saying that it would be foolish to forsake all, when they learn that that is what we are teaching. They believe that if they literally obeyed Jesus, they would die, or that their spouse or kids would die, or some other really horrific tragedy would happen. Some come right out and say that such dedication is unreasonable, and definitely not on the cards for them personally. We here at A Voice in the Desert have had an amazing record as a community. We now have at least one team on every continent except Antarctica, and some of us have been doing this for more than 45 years. Yet so far, not one single member of all these communities has actually died while being a member with us. We've probably had more protection from death than the average person in the world. But it's not because God has guaranteed that we would never die. Quite the opposite. He says that until we are ready to die for Him in His service, we are not fit to be one of His disciples. Much of our focus is on the soon coming Great Tribulation, a time of greater suffering on the earth than has ever happened in history. We fully expect to be killed for our faith. In fact, some of us may even die before then, through our refusal to use a microchip for buying and selling, if nothing else. But everything fits into perspective when you remember that we are all going to die. And this is especially true when we remember that there is only one who arose from the dead and returned to live with his Father in heaven. He alone has the words of eternal life. Someone has said that if you have not found anything worth dying for, then it's proof positive that you don't have anything worth living for. Living without a vision that is eternal is a perfect illustration of how more than 99% of the world lives their lives. The churches are full of people who love to talk about going to heaven when they die, but it's hard to find any one of them who would actually put their lives at risk for someone else or for the sake of the gospel right now. Religion, at best, for most of these people, is just another platform for proving that they're better than others. I often remind members of our community, if you're prepared to lay down your life in love for your brothers and sisters, Is it really going to be such a big deal if they use your toothbrush or if they do something else without asking your permission? You see, for me personally, thoughts about death have been almost a daily reality for most of my adult life. I don't personally find it morbid at all, and the older I get, the more I see it as having led me to make my life really count. I highly recommend that you actually determine to think about dying at least once every day. It's one of the greatest incentives to make every day count for eternity, and it's totally realistic. Far more useful than sticking your head in the sand and pretending that death is not out there on the horizon one day for all of us. You see, when death comes, you won't have a choice about turning loose of everything. Your family, your friends, your job, your possessions, your plans, everything. But by then, it won't count for anything in the eyes of God because you had no choice in the matter. But what if you could bring yourself to voluntarily let go of all those things right now, like Jesus asked? That is by far the best preparation I can think of for when we do literally die, and when we do literally have to stand before God and give an account for what we did with our lives and what we did with the teachings of His Son. Recently, a few of us were discussing some of the most dangerous situations we have been in over our lives, and we came up with quite a long list. There must have been like dozens of times for each of us when we could very easily have died because of the wild circumstances in which we found ourselves. So the fact that none of us has died does take on a kind of passively miraculous overtone. So what I'm trying to say here is that along with counting the cost of discipleship, don't forget to include laying down your life, whether it's instantly in some unsafe environment or gradually through dying daily to all your plans and ambitions. I really do think it would make our job a lot easier if people wouldn't even bother contacting us unless they had reached that point in their lives, where they would rather die than go on living that shallow life that they have so far experienced by not exercising full obedience to Christ. Having said that, as I often do, I'll put the email address on screen right now so that you can use it if you want to contact us. But you know, these days we are pretty busy, so it will probably save you and us a lot of time if you do not write to us. Not unless you've counted the cost and want to find a fellowship where everyone is committed to dying daily in literal, physical service to God 24/7. If that sounds like you, then I would love to hear from you.